Today I want to talk about flooring, asbestos in a flooring. Yeah, you're not going to believe it. In millions of Aussie homes, there's still asbestos flooring products out in buildings that we work in, buildings that we live in. And let's start with a few of the most common ones. So the most common one by far would be the old lino. So the old style lino that was made in the 60s and 70s and all that, ever since the asbestos era, right up to the 80s. It had like a thin backing on it that was asbestos, and that can be really high levels of asbestos, between 80 and 90%. There's also like a paper backing that had asbestos in it on some vinyls. The other type of asbestos vinyl flooring is, they called them vinyl asbestos tiles. And to the plain eye, I guess, they just look like normal tiles, but they don't have any grout lines. You know, these tiles are probably about 2 to 3 millimeters thick. And traditionally they were just glued straight down to the slab, or sometimes glued straight down to an asbestos sheeting that might be laid over a timber floor, or even just glued straight to a timber floor. Now that glue, it also had asbestos in it. One of the glues that was probably predominantly used was called Blackjack. And just like all things, they thought that asbestos was going to be a great thing to put in this glue for all of the amazing properties that asbestos had. So it was literally black. So it was Blackjack Glue that had asbestos in it that was used to fix vinyl asbestos tiles to concrete floors, timber floors. The sheet vinyl we talked about before, it also had glue. The thing is, whether the glue contained asbestos or not is kind of irrelevant, because when they were stuck together, when you separated them, there would always be asbestos left on that substrate anyway and be in the glue. So when you're removing asbestos flooring with the vinyl, the linoleum, the vinyl sheeting, the vinyl asbestos tiles, you're always going to have some sort of asbestos residue on the flooring that's left behind. So the best way to do that is with timber is probably just to remove the flooring, just cut it out, or with the concrete, you could grind it. Just get concrete grinders in. It's a pretty big process to get rid of those two types of asbestos flooring. But you know what? It can be done, so there's the good news. Another type of asbestos flooring you'll find is what we would call compressed sheeting. So it's about 19 millimeters thick. I don't know how much that was in the old days in inches, but basically it was the thickness of timber floorboards. And what they would do, they would put it in wet areas. So you would have your timber floor from your hallway, your lounge, and then butt it up at that doorway. And then the asbestos compressed flooring would form the substrate for the wet areas, because, you know, as we all know, those old timber floors, if they get wet, they start to rot. There's all sorts of problems. We still see that today. So this compressed flooring was invented, and it's quite good stuff. It's really, really hard wearing. It's incredibly heavy and incredibly strong. It's an amazing product. A lot of times it's just got tiles glued straight to it. Sometimes there's a bit of bedding. It just depends how it was done. Commonly, we just jackhammer the tiles off it and then seal it. You know, it's going to get tiled over again, so it's encapsulated. But we always give people the options to remove it if they want to. And it's still absolutely 100% durable. There is no barrier to having an asbestos-free home. Okay, so one of the other types of asbestos in flooring is tile underlay. So while we're on bathrooms, we'll keep talking about them. So because timber floorboards have joins in them and they expand and contract because timber is a natural product, you're going to have problems with grout and grout lines in tiles, and you're going to have tiles popping. So they just use normal 6 mil sheet of asbestos sheeting, and they would just nail that down to the timber flooring, and so that they could lay tiles and tile bed or whatever they want to get that tile floor look over timber floors. It was really common. You know, if it was concrete slab, they just lay straight to the slab. So you always got to be careful in older homes if you're going to jackhammer up those the tile floors in like kitchens, bathrooms, laundries, and even just in the entranceway of the hallway. If you've got timber floors and you've got ceramic tiles or, just tiles, you need to be a bit careful if it's an older house and just get that substrate tested. You're just going to hear me say this every video. The only way to know 100% is to get it tested. Moving on from those products, there's another thing with vinyl asbestos tiles. They will sometimes have like a grip edge or a nosing on them. And it's like a black sort of grippy strip. It's probably about that thick. It's probably 2 inches in the old school. And that black vinyl that was in that strip also contained asbestos. The other places you'll find asbestos in flooring is under carpet. So back in the Whitnum days in Western Australia, and many other asbestos refineries or mines, processing plants, whatever you want to call them, the raw asbestos was transported in Hessian sacks. And later on, for some reason, the Hessian sacks were sort of washed out a little bit and shredded and used for carpet underlay. So believe it or not, back in the day, there was pretty much the only time you could have an asbestos floor in your house, the only time you could have a floor in your house that didn't contain asbestos was when you had a concrete slab or timber floorboards. Because even the carpet underlay under your brand new carpet had asbestos fibres all through it. Because they washed them out just to get the bulk out, but the microscopic fibres were still caught in that underlay. So if you're removing some carpet and you see sort of that Hessian, we all know that sort of camel Hessian colour that's been shredded, you pretty much need to stop and get it tested. Now, the last type of asbestos in flooring, and it's not necessarily a flooring product, that you can see is in some old factories, they'd have huge concrete slabs. And I don't know whether they'd have joins in these slabs. And I don't know whether it was for expansion and contraction or whether that had been extended or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But sometimes you'll see in the joints, there's like a filler, like a mastic. And that mastic can have asbestos in it. So everywhere you look, back in the day, asbestos was everywhere in flooring. So I'll just recap that from the top. So number one, you've got your sheet vinyl and sheet lino. They look pretty much the same. The difference between them was the linoleum, the lino, was much thicker, heavy-duty product. And the sheet vinyl was a lot easier to work with. So, they have all sorts of weird patterns, crazy patterns. Just don't guess, just date it, pre-1990, and get it tested. Next thing was your vinyl asbestos tiles. Now they were probably, I'm going to guess here, probably 9 inch by 9 inch tiles that were directly stuck to a substrate. So you still see them in a lot of shopping centres, you still see them in a lot of older shops. They're a really good product, really hard wearing, and really tough, and that's why they used them. But don't forget that either of those two products, the vinyl asbestos tiles, the lino, or actually 3 products, or the sheet vinyl, the glue that was used to stick it to the substrate, whether it was timber or concrete, will have asbestos in it because as you peel it off, it'll be left behind. So our next product was the Hessian, shredded Hessian sacks that made up the carpet underlay. And once again, you just got to stop and get it tested. Okay. So, and then finally we went to the tile underlay. So that would be typically in a house, if you've got a timber floor in your house and it's pre-1990, and you notice that when you go to do the tiles, you pull that front edge off and you see like a wafer of fibro underneath it, that's your asbestos, and that's typically nailed to a timber floor. And then finally we got the mastic. So that mastic, that can be in joints in concrete slabs. So I hope this clears it up for you. Look, you just need to understand that if you're working in a house that's built pre-1990, you just need to get things tested. It's the safest thing, it's the cheapest thing, it's effective, it's quick, it's easy. So that's from me today, all about asbestos flooring. So we'll see you on the next one.